He kōna I purangi tēnei nā te reo irirangi o Aotearoa.
There's been a big cultural shift in recognising representation, just in like the last, less than 10 years. And it's a really good time to kind of bring it to the forefront. Because we've always been here, we just haven't celebrated it, or we haven't kind of talked about the challenges that we've had, and that's becoming more of the forefront. I'm glad it's here. I'm glad it's finally here.
Swap Gomez talking about a new fund that's been announced by New Zealand On Air, the New Music Pan-Asian Fund. Kia ora, I'm Kadambari and this is Voices. Swap Gomez is part of Yokozuna, an Auckland-based band, and on today's episode, I'm chatting to him and other Asian arts practitioners who've been involved in some ways for a while now to help get this focused fund in place.
We're an instrumental band, however, we collaborate with various artists across both Aotearoa, but also like overseas artists as well. Rappers such as Tom Scott or Mellow Downs, to singers like Bailey Wiley, P. Diggs, Lawton Quarter. There's just a big list of people that we've been fortunate enough to work with. So we kind of exist as a band that dabbles in both instrumental music and also writing songs with other people, but we don't actually have a front person per se. So it's a unique setup, and we've got 3 Asians in the band. Myself, JY Lee, who's South Korean, and Kenji Iwamitsu Holdaway, who's Japanese. What we have been, privileged to do is actually play in amongst the wider industry and not just have to stick to our sort of community bubbles. And that's becoming more common now. Like when I was first starting up, I've been doing this for about almost 20 years now. And when I first started, I was definitely the only Bangladeshi musician / creative in a lot of the context that I was in. But I was doing all sorts of stuff, but in the Western context, definitely the only one of where I come from. Now that's slowly starting to change. From a musical standpoint, we get to not only focus our creative outputs into a Western context, but we can also go back to the aspects of our own countries and our own sort of traditions and things like that, and bring that to the forefront into the Western context as well.
Swap was part of the core consulting group that New Zealand On Air involved in the development of this fund. One of the things that often comes up with focused funding is that, does the content really need to have an obvious cultural angle of the community?
But I like the idea that this fund is broad in terms of you can have artists that solely focus on writing Western style music. However, the fund also caters for artists that are not exactly writing Western music. So that's one thing that I brought up in the past as well, is that I'd love to see some community groups actually apply for this fund and have a really good chance at getting selected based on the style of music that they're doing, which is could be very traditional and in a foreign language as well. And it doesn't have to be necessarily Western, which I find really cool. So I like the way that the umbrella is set for this. But we'll more than likely probably go for it. But yeah, that's the other part of it. So we'll probably go for all the funds we can, and see which one, accepts. So yeah, I just don't want that feeling of we're only applying it because we're Asian. I kind of I kind of feel that with a lot of grants that are categorized in that way. So they're all main grants. But yeah, we just more than likely we'll probably go for it, but we'll probably go for the other ones as well. My stance on funding has always been that you don't want to feel like you are applying for a grant on the side that isn't that the mainstream grant, because we've got the main grant quite a number of times, and we were so lucky to get that. But we never thought about ourselves as being like the minority in the stream or anything like that. I just hope artists don't feel like they're second best to the main fund, given this fund exists. It's just another. I just treat it like another main fund. Like, that's pretty much it.
Well, it's an important one nonetheless, at $10,000 to help an artist put out and promote a new release. New Zealand On Air's Music Diversity Report shows that Asians are underrepresented in the music industry here, and focus funding has been a long time coming. Teresa Patterson is head of music at New Zealand On Air.
Well, the Music Diversity Report does feed, does give us a lot of information around who we're funding, and it's all self-identified information. And, as it is with our limited budget at NZ On Air, whenever we do get additional putea, we, try and serve these underserved audiences. And the Pan-Asian audience is definitely an audience in the music side that we haven't addressed as of yet. So we're saying that the new music Pan-Asian funding is available to all musicians in Aotearoa who self-identify as Pan-Asian, and Pan-Asian, as defined by the United Nations, covers all of Asia as well as the Middle East. And so we have a list of 50 countries on our definition of what Pan-Asian means. I'm just really excited to see what applications we are going to get. So we're going to really try and reach far and wide to let as much of the community know that this is available, because it's genreless. You can be playing any, your music can be any kind of genre, whether it's pop or hip hop or, we will welcome traditional. So yeah, I'm just really excited to see what we're going to receive.
Clarissa Chai has been championing this cause for a while. She's a Malaysian-born vocalist and started a platform called Asians in Music and Sandbox, which is all about fully funding Pan-Asian artists to get their new music across the finish line.
Creating a space where there's lots of Asian artists who can make a career of it and doing creative musical things in New Zealand, and sort of, that's actually a sustainable thing, and this isn't just a space for only certain types of people. I think that's really the core of it. We found that a lot of people who were new weren't. Well, obviously they're not familiar with, how funding works and everything. And there's always this, preconception that, and I found this with myself as well, that I'm not gonna, it's not for me, or I'm not gonna get it anyway. I guess it's a lack of confidence, because with the Pan-Asian Fund, it's because it's targeted. I think that it would be something that we would see and be, I can actually apply for this.
Also part of the core consulting group was Yi-Yang Lee, or Square, who's been in the game of championing Asian arts representation in New Zealand for well over a decade now, with the Ariza Foundation for Asian Performing Arts, and most recently the Facebook platform, Where Are the Asians At?
Square, what are you hoping will come out of this, the first round? I mean, it's a pretty exciting, a highly contested fund, I would imagine. So what are you hoping will come out of this?
A diversity of new voices, younger voices. I know through our work with Where the Asians At that there is a whole subculture of Pan-Asian music activity that is nowhere close to being captured within our mainstream or within the conventional networks and sectors that we operate in. And when I say we, I mean me. Even I am still discovering on almost a daily, weekly basis new voices within our sector. There's for example, this has just passed. Last Saturday at Faux Arts Festival, there was a Chinese rapper who raps in 5 languages, and it was performing there. He doesn't really have a market in New Zealand, but his music's on radio play in Guangzhou, Hong Kong, Shenzhen. The bro raps in 5 languages, including South Korean and Japanese. Crazy. But nobody knows who he is. That is exactly right. And the thing is, and one of the things I've challenged New Zealand on air a little bit about is, their mandate, of course, is to support broadcast within the New Zealand context, and rightly so. But some of our Pan-Asian artists may not necessarily have a desire to reach out to a New Zealand market. Their markets could be in Asia. Their markets could be somewhere else. And if so, then are they naturally at a disadvantage? The goal might be to get to a point where you're being funded not because you're Asian or because you're writing some Asian content, but in order to get to that point, interventions like this focus round is necessary, because it's not about inequalities, but it is about inequities. It is the fact that we are, to begin with, already, behind the 8 ball in terms of, access to all sorts of different things, I suppose. And I suppose the idea of this targeted funding round is to hopefully provide a one-time boost to our practitioners, where they may not necessarily have to be competing with everyone else, and then from there, hopefully there'll be ripple effects going forward.
The New Music Pan-Asian Fund opens on the 5th of May and closes on the 25th. That's Voices with me, Kadambari Raghukumar. Big thanks to Yokozuna for the music in this episode. Today's episode was mixed by Blair Stagpool. You can find Voices on all your favourite podcast platforms: Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, and everywhere else. You can also find us on the RNZ website. Thanks for listening. I'm Kadambari.